Okay, a profile in PowerShell is a script that runs when PowerShell starts. You can customize the way PowerShell behaves based upon a script, and that script we can define to be run automatically whenever PowerShell starts. So that's called the PowerShell profile, and the profile is different for each version of PowerShell that you have. I mean, version is not the right word, but kind of each edition of PowerShell that you use. So Windows PowerShell has its own profile, and PowerShell Core has its profile. And even the PowerShell ISE has a different profile, and the PowerShell console in VS Code has a different profile as well. So you can set up each of those editions, if you will, of PowerShell with their own startup behavior. The way that we know what profile file is actually being used can be discovered by the variable profile. So I'm going to do just $profile here, and this is going to show us the fully qualified path to the profile in PowerShell. So what you'll see here is this is a full file name. So full file specification. So C: users, Craig documents, Windows PowerShell, because I'm running Windows PowerShell here. And then the profile file itself is Microsoft.PowerShell_profile.ps1. Okay, so we need to just create that file. That's all we have to do to create a profile. And of course, we can do that using this as the name of our file inside. So first thing you need to do is you need to ensure that this directory is created. Okay, so what I can do is I can say make a directory, and then I'm gonna well, before I do this, I'm gonna do this. Let me show you split dash path, and if I give it profile, split path allows us to take a directory path and split the directory from the file name apart. So you'll see that what split path did is it gave me the directory that this file belongs in. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say make a directory. So I'm going to make this directory, and the directory that I'm going to make is going to be I'm going to use a split path commandlet to get just the directory name from the profile. Okay, and so that should be successful. If I already have that directory, I'm just going to get an error, and that's not a big deal. All right, so what? It's already there. I wanted it there anyway. So if I'm working with this interactively, after I run this command, I've either got the directory or it was already there, and in either case, I win. So now all I need to do is take my favorite editor. So I could maybe say Notepad $profile, and then that's going to open Notepad with the file name for profile. And Notepad says, hey, I can't find that file. Do you want to create it? So I'll say yes. And in my profile, I'll just say, hi, it is, and then maybe I'll just say get date. I don't know what I'm going to put in here. Just something kind of silly to show that there is a profile. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. And now when I open up a new instance of PowerShell, you'll see that I've got my script. And you can put anything you want in that script, right? So it doesn't matter what you put there, but any way that you want to customize PowerShell, you can. If I were to show you my profile on my machine, so this is my profile on my machine. So I actually do a few things in there. I'm not going to go through it in a great amount of detail, but basically what I do is I look to see if I can, okay, so I probably ought to explain a couple things to you first. So I use Microsoft OneDrive as my cloud storage solution. I'm not saying that you should use it or anything, but that's the one I've chosen to use. And I created a folder in OneDrive called scripts. This has a lot of the scripts that I have created just for whatever purpose. And I like to have those on all the machines that I work on. So any machine that I have a kind of pseudo permanent presence on, I sync to my OneDrive. And when I sync to my OneDrive, my scripts folder is available. The most important part of this folder here is one called modules. And inside my modules folder are the modules that I have created. So each one of these are PowerShell libraries that I have written that help me go about my daily work better. All right. We'll talk a ton about modules and in a little while. Okay, so that's how I make my scripts available to me, kind of all over the place. I'm probably going to play around with this script a little bit more and make it so if I don't have OneDrive on my system, I'll just download the files from OneDrive and store them locally. But anyway, that's kind of another whole other story. So here, what I'm doing is I'm trying to find to see if OneDrive is actually on my system. So that's what I'm doing is some of these test paths and stuff. And then what I'm doing is if I find OneDrive, I'm going to try to create what I call my script path in my profile, which is where I store my personal scripts. So the first part of this is trying to discover what kind of computer on, if it's synced with OneDrive, and if it is, to set my script path to that scripts folder in OneDrive. If not, if I don't find that, then I start looking at some different situations. I say, oh, if this is on Windows or the platform, so in here, I'm basically seeing if I'm running on Windows. And if I'm running on Windows and I don't have it, I'm going to look for a folder C:\scripts. And if that exists, so a lot of servers that I manage, I'll create a folder out there for scripts, then I'll set it to that. And if none of those exist, I just set it to my home directory, my script path. If I'm not running on Windows, but I'm running on Linux, then I just set my script path to my home path. And then this is the important part down here that makes it work for me, is I change my PowerShell module path to include the modules directory in that script path if I find it. Okay. So that makes my modules available to me on whatever system. I'll revisit this when we talk about modules to show you how it all comes together. But that's my my startup script. And I wrote this so it's platform independent and it can work on Linux and it can work on Windows. And I actually keep a copy of this script in a script called install profile. And if I ever sit down on a machine that I link to my OneDrive, I just go to my scripts folder and say install profile, and excuse me, it will take a copy of this and create this file for me. So that's why I made it kind of platform independent. It checks to see if it's on Linux or Windows and so forth. All right. So that's a little bit about the profile. In fact, that's pretty much everything about the profile, to be honest with you. And I just have the code or the steps in this slide that I just walked you through. So on Windows, I demonstrated on Windows. It works the same on Linux. If you got PowerShell on Linux, the profile path is going to have the profile in it. And so you could use any editor you want, like VI or Nano or even VS Code, if you want to create your profile path. So that's a little about profiles.